Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 79 of ATL Falcons UK podcast. As you can see, we are all back. We're all here. It's not just me and Brian this week. I apologise again for that one. It was a little bit of a last-minute fumble, which is very typical of the Falcons, of course. So it's good to have us all back. Hopefully, we'll put in a better shift than the boys did at weekend. Let's just get into the nitty gritty. Go on, Liam. How are you feeling?
Dejected, I think.
Perfect. So end show.
Yeah, I'll call the show that. No, I think it was disappointing, wasn't it? I think they were, ultimately we got beat by a guy who'd been in the door for about 4 days. Probably hadn't even opened the first page of the book yet, and still putting a better performance than what we could produce on offense.
Yeah.
They have no running game. Well, that was, we already knew they had no running game before the game. They didn't produce a running game during it, apart from Baldy himself running everywhere. But ultimately, we got beat by a guy who just rocked up, almost like a new boy at school, and just ran all over a professional team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened to us, really, isn't it?
It's a rough one, isn't it? Mark, anything to add, or should we just call it a night?
I guess. I think the most disappointing for me, but disappointing thing for me is we're just not progressing. We're not evolving. We're not getting any better. If anything, we're getting worse. I don't think, in my personal view, the quarterback made a great deal of difference this week, if I'm honest.
Nope.
We still had numerous trips down the field that resulted in nothing but field goals. I guess where my real annoyance is lying right now is that, to my earlier point of we're not evolving, we're not making the most of these offensive weapons that we've spent so much draft capital on. I sat on the show really, really early in the season and said, we need a proper play call in OC. And I really think that's the only thing that can make a difference to this offense now. Now, I think certainly the mood on Twitter right now is obviously very, very anti-Arthur Smith. I'm not quite sure I'm fully there yet. I'm sick of seeing people almost kind of forget what he's done up until now. And don't get me wrong, no, he hasn't taken us to the playoffs, but he took on a hell of a lot of issues and bad cap and all of that sort of stuff. And he kept us competitive and almost kind of kept us engaged a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
The really and I think that to me brings me, sort of round full circle, is I really, really wanted this year to be, look, you've weathered the storm. You've done the hard yards. Now, you've got stuff at your disposal. Go make stuff happen. And as a matter of fact, we've somehow regressed. And, we can't blame, one position or, it's certainly, as I said, doesn't matter whether it's Ritter or Heineke on the field. They're essentially the same player. Because it's obviously this offense is limiting them both. So, I've got a bit of a heavy heart about this week because I really don't want to be out on him. There's a lot about Arthur Smith I like, but I'm just kind of getting to that point now where I'm like, last year I trusted that offense to be able to at least ram the ball down anyone's throat.
Yeah.
Now the only player that I trust to get us any points is Younghoe Koo. So
terrifying.
And I think, I'm seeing, you're seeing Jonnu Smith Matt Collins get more out of the game than these generational weapons. And I don't know, man. I'm kind of on the floor with it at the minute. I'm really, really struggling to necessarily be on one side of the camp or the other. I'm just tired, man.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just
back to Liam's term, dejected seems spot on right now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Go on, Cal. Give us your little summary, and before we start arguing with each other and scrapping.
I think it's hard to say it was an embarrassing defeat, but I can see it was kind of close, even though we lost by 3. I think it's we knew they had no running game. We proved that they had no running game. They've had a quarterback that was snapping from his centre literally 10 minutes before we started the game. He's probably not even spoke to his centre all week. He has no idea about the playbook. Even that tweet I put in the chat earlier about he was basically getting called the playbook when he was in the huddle.
Yeah.
Our defense partially good at times, but that last run for him, he ran over 20 yards and he didn't tackle. They didn't have the wide receiver like Jefferson. He's been injured for quite a few weeks. He wasn't there. So it's hard to put. It feels like embarrassing. You sort of get what I mean. It's not an embarrassing, but it's close. I
think the manner in which it happened was embarrassing. Like that last drive, not being able to just switch it on for that is rough.
It's poor. And the defense was the same. Like you've got to blame them for that last drive completely.
Mm-hmm.
The defense. We'll probably get onto the defense soon anyway. But the last few weeks, it's like it's a slightly different team. Like sort of 100%. What's happened, everything's sort of changed.
I'm happy to move on to the D now. I'm happy to move straight onto the D now whilst we're on it, and we can all.
I'll speak about Smith quickly. Everyone reacted, and I get it. Falcons fans or all sport fans react. I think more people are annoyed that these are his now players. We have drafted top 10 3 times in a row, and they've all been offensive. And what sort of changed on our offense? Like it has been poor.
Yeah. And
I think that's one of the main things. It is more or less his team now. But I feel like what Mark said, something has to change. Whether that is Arthur Smith, a new offensive coach, give the offensive coach actually let him do the plays, call the plays. But I think something has to change because we're not progressive. We are getting worse, and we shouldn't be. We came in this year with all these media outlets. Us as fans, this could be a top 10 offense. Even with Ridder or Heineke, we thought could be a top 10 offense. The O-line last year was top 10, very good, got better, and everything's getting worse. Apart from Coop, who's just the goal, everything's getting slightly worse.
Literally. Coming off the back of that, then let's break down the defense a little bit. I know we've been nothing but praise until, like you said, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I know there's been some games where we've been leathered, but a lot of the time it's because the offense couldn't stay on the field. Liam, where do you think it's going wrong? Is there a reason, or I just think it's one of those things?
I can't really say it's down to like sort of personnel or anything like that. I just think, some games it's gonna happen. Like defenses don't play well every game. I think the main area of concern has got to be in the trenches. I think we're not generating enough pressure on the quarterback. Not just sack numbers in general. Obviously, sack numbers would be great, but we're just generally not developing enough consistent pressure. And quarterbacks in any position, especially quarterbacks somebody like Dobbs, who's won't be settled in any way. The one thing that you can't allow is time, because at the end of the day, he's a professional quarterback who knows how to play the game. So any quarterback that's got the time will find open players eventually. What we needed to do is obviously put that pressure on where he didn't know quite how the player was going to develop and what the receivers would be, and create that disconnection from them. But we gave him all the time in the world a lot of the time, and even he's not a quick guy, but we let him get out of the pocket so many times, and it was just it just wasn't really working on that side of the ball, which has been different. And obviously, we have been pretty good defensively. Like, we still stopped the run, so that was pretty solid. But we just make some individual errors. I think, a few penalties that we can tidy up on. But I'm not massively concerned about anything on the defensive side of the ball, because I think blips will happen. Sometimes you just have to outscore teams, and we scored. Well, to be fair to us, we scored a decent amount of points in that game.
Yeah.
We just couldn't quite do it on defense. But I still think, even with the amount of points we scored, the offense is still the issue there, isn't it? Really, for me.
Fair enough. Go on, Mark. Take over.
I don't know. I'm kind of like, don't be wrong, we lost Grady, right? And that's a huge loss to any team. And obviously that kind of came about last week, and I know we didn't get a chance to chat about it. So obviously that's a big miss. It's losing Grady Jarrett's a big loss to any defense, right? And I think the real issue for me is that against the Vikings, usually the defense adjust. That's what we've seen to keep us in games. The defense is adjusted, usually in the second half, and then we play lockdown football, right? Mm-hmm. But and listen, if it had been Kirk Cousins, I could have gone cool, because that offense can beat you in the passing game. It can beat anyone in the passing game, and they proved it over the past few years with Kirk, right? Not that I'm the biggest Kirk Cousins fan, but their offense is a well-oiled unit, right?
Yeah.
Running game aside, so I guess I'm getting slightly concerned that over the past couple of weeks the defense are starting to regress too. Now, am I putting this game on the defense? No, but they didn't play lockdown football like they usually do. Mm-hmm. Now, again, could call it a bad game. Yeah, sure. I mean, they happen, right? But I guess it's really, really tough now as a Falcons fan to have any faith on either side of the ball. And my advice to you is, if you're, after the past couple of weeks, expecting this defense to suddenly start playing lockdown football in the second half, I think you're dreaming. Yeah. So I was obviously hugely disappointed with the offense, but I was disappointed with the D as well. And like I say, I think there's certain factors that you can sort of pivot into that conversation. But I'm again, because going back to my earlier point, everyone's like, sack Coach Smith and let Nielsen take over. And it's like, based on what exactly?
Weirdly, we had this conversation 3-4 weeks ago, maybe. Somebody put a hypothetical. This is when we were on the roll, and somebody said, "Oh my God, we don't need a Smith replacement whenever he goes, because Nielsen sat there waiting." And we said it's too soon, and I completely agree. Like, I'm not saying he wouldn't be the man, but no, where's your evidence? Where's your
again, if we were number 2 or number 3 defense in the league, then sure, there's a case for it. I'm still not quite sure whether I'm convinced that even if Smith was sacked tomorrow, that it would be the right decision. But what I'm saying is, I think if you're really out there going sack Coach Smith and appoint Nielsen, I think you're mentally ill, quite frankly. So I think coaching wise, top to bottom, we've got some real issues, because I really don't think this year we can blame it on personnel.
I agree.
100%. So AJ, Okudah, Bates, that secondary should not be giving up that 2-minute drive for me.
No chance.
And boys, I called it in the WhatsApp group. As soon as our touchdown went in, I went, we're gonna lose.
Yeah,
because it was almost like literally clicking back into that mindset of old of, we're about to throw this away. Yeah. And my worry is that if we do not change something very, very quickly. Falcons fans everywhere, do you know Arthur blanked on fire quick? So Smith at least getting another year.
Yeah.
So, we're about to be in for a lot more pain if the organization, really don't do something to fix this.
Yeah.
And for me, I stick to my original point from the beginning of the season. We need a proper OC, and we should have gone straight to Eric Bieniemy, because you see what that dude's doing with Sam Howell.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is completely where I'm at from the top to the bottom. We've suddenly somehow turned into a really badly coached team.
Yeah. I think I'll carry on with that a little bit into the Smith realm. I don't think I'm Smith out just yet.
No.
But I would like him to acknowledge that the current setup isn't sustainable, at least.
Yeah.
Whether that be bringing in a coordinator, whether it be bringing in an OC or just someone solely for the passing plays, or just something to add another dimension to our game, because at the minute there is no way that this is going to improve. It is literally only going to regress. This is the stage where
we're getting more predictable.
Exactly. Well, exactly what I was just going to say. The playbook now should be. Sorry, go on, Carl.
No, you get it, like Mark said, you're getting found out. Like some of the plays we're doing weekly, and I know every team have some bad plays, but you look at some of the plays and you're like
no logic.
You actually I'm not an offensive coach at all, but you can know bad plays and you're like, oh, why is he called that? Like, why is he calling that?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've always said you get certain obviously head coaches that will do the offense, etc. But Smith's obviously very new to being a head coach as well, and I feel like this is the time where something's got to change. We know something's got to change. Either let his offensive coach call the plays, or his thing is he's going to back on him. If we don't make the playoffs, I think he will be gone at the end of the year. So he must know. He's got to see this, and something's got to change. He's got to make a decision whether he likes it or not. Something's got to change in this organization at the moment.
Yeah, and I think one thing I agree with you, Carl, to a certain extent. But one thing I think it's situational, right? So I'm not putting it down anymore to him being a new head coach. I think what he hasn't done is he hasn't evolved as a coach. He's like as a head coach, the only mindset he's ever been in is damage limitation, right? And now it's like, well, go and express yourself. Go and recreate what you did at the Titans. Go and do something for the love of all that is holy. And I think that's where that's where it's breaking down, is that it's almost like you got to change your game up. Oh, well, I don't know how to. And I think to go back to your earlier point, Danny, right? I'm not Smith out yet. I do think that the dude, unfortunately, his personality is obviously very, very dry, very abrupt. He's not gonna. I think he's obviously sticking to his manner of the way that. And let's not get it twisted, guys. It doesn't matter what he says to any of these reporters.
No.
They'll pull stuff out to fit the rhetoric because these reporters know that Falcons fans are annoyed. We've had we're kind of slipping back into that negative mindset, and they'll stoke it up. Like don't get it twisted. Like nobody in the press now is an Arthur Smith fan because he's abrupt with them, right? And he doesn't. And I guess we're on a different playing field now, because we used to get the slogans from Dan Quinn, and we used to get the nicey, really, really nice guy, and he used to speak from the heart, and it's all on me,
And all your
and
motivational quotes.
Yeah.
Smith doesn't do that. Like, great example, the mustache thing, right? That guy didn't stand at that podium and start talking about his mustache, right?
No.
It was a question that was posed to him, and therefore his answer became the news story, right? And the answer became the news story to annoy Falcons fans, right? Like D-Led's a great example, right? The guy just stokes the fire. That's all he does, right? Because he knows it gets clicks. That's his job, right? So I'm not Smith out yet, but I am at the point now where, you know, I don't think the dude can. The only thing that man can do now, to get people back on side, is to change and to evolve and to do something. If he does not, the media are going to bury him.
I agree 100%. I think a prime example, we've got one in the comments and we ran our own as well. However, thank you boys as well from Out of Your Mind for watching. But yeah, so these boys ran a poll, 4% still believe in him. We ran a poll and ours was a little bit higher than that, admittedly. Ours is 16% still believe in him. The only problem I do have with these polls is they always happen so quickly after a loss.
Timing.
Everybody's a lot more reactionary than they would typically be.
Definitely.
So maybe if we were to run that, go on, Cal.
If we put another one out tonight or tomorrow and then see, will it make any difference? I don't know, but
I think
I feel like we know, we already know he's not going anywhere. He's not. We know that. Like, our flank wouldn't do it. So it don't matter. But the conversation is always going to be there, and it gets fans talking, the media, and all that. And I think, but he knows the pressure. He's seeing it, like, and maybe this is the week that sort of needed to happen, and we'll obviously see in the next few weeks if this can push him to change something.
Well, so I just want to say, right, I think people have made their mind up now. But that's the problem. So in other words, and no disrespect, Nick, by the way, I'm just picking up on your comment, but like, you know, we can't win then. So what's the point? Like why are we even sitting here talking about this? Because everyone's made their mind up. Because the media have buried him already.
Yeah.
So like, 100%. So and we say it with soccer over here, it's like so much, right? And I'm not saying you're wrong, right? But I'm almost like, well, I'm at a loss now, because if all Falcon fans have made their mind up, because he's been buried, right? The media have buried him, right? And by the way, to add equality to this discussion, he hasn't done himself any favors. I'm not saying he has, right? But I kind of go, well, so the only thing you can do is either work out these issues and turn it around, or everyone's made their mind up. So like, you know, when you go, well, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
It doesn't really matter what, like, the fans think or what the media thinks. So if the results change, everybody will be back on side. It's just a results business. If we start winning games and looking good, people will like him again. If we didn't have these losses and we won, say, our last two games, we'd have, even if the performances weren't that much different, if we'd have won those two games, everybody would probably, that poll would have been very different, because it's just about winning games. That's all people care about.
To play devil's advocate, we've lost so many games by a score or less.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he's called some questionable plays.
Yeah.
But there is also no reason that the players on the field shouldn't have been executing some of those plays, despite them being called. I'm not saying that's the case for all of them, because some of them, like being 1 yard away from a touchdown and trying to pass it instead of just plowing through and stuff like that. I'm not saying he's chose the right thing, but also the players still have a responsibility to execute to a decent level.
But I guess, so I take your point, but the problem is his scheme, right? So the players can only execute the scheme that they've got, right? So you know, I understand what you're saying, and I think there's some cases there where things could have been executed better. Would those if we just say there are 5 instances in a game where because of poor execution, would it have changed the result of the game? Maybe it's one game, I reckon. Personally, but you take four trips to the red zone, one of which was a 1st and goal at the 1, and you only come out with 4 field goals, right? Then there's something desperately wrong with the scheme that you are running.
Absolutely. Well, off the back of what we said earlier in the show and just echoed here, how does a team that is not only run heavy, run only basically last year, that is literally all we had in the locker, that doesn't just go. I know we lost Patterson a little bit at the start, so that kind of changes your dynamic, but even he's back now, so you've not even got that excuse, and you've got Bijan and Tyler's a unit by all accounts. It doesn't. This just goes back to what you know. Just go back to your basics. Surely that's our like stability.
I think in the first half, I don't know how many times Bijan actually tried running the ball. I don't know how many times he even gave it.
I think from the stats, from what I remember, and maybe, and I don't know. I'm surmising, right? But I think the carries were relatively close between the two of them. And I also remember looking at the rate of targets of Pitts to Smith, and that was pretty close as well. Yeah. And this is kind of my point, right? Is you're almost like you're trying to be cute, right? You're trying to go, right, well, if I split the touches, then people aren't going to know whether it's going to be Bijan or whether it's going to be, and it's like, stop being cute. Start
using your good players.
Start utilizing these guys, right? Because we know what Bijan can do, we know what Pitts can do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's like those two are the ones that really frustrate me. London, not so much because he's being utilized a bit more, right? But it's like stop trying to be cute. Stop trying to keep opponents guessing and start playing football.
I feel like this is why these are his players, ain't they? He picked these two players, and
Terry's always maintained where we draft BPA, right? Which I don't disagree with, but don't draft BPA if you're not going to use them. Like what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to sell jerseys. If that's what you're doing, cool, no problem. But by the way, those kids who you're drafting who are generational talents, they'll sell jerseys. But guess what? By the time they get to the end of the contract, somebody else will pay them what you're not prepared to because you're basing it off poor production, which is a direct result of your scheme.
Yeah.
So I'm just so drained with it, man. Like I just want to see these special talents be special.
Just to evidence your point a little bit, sorry, Liam. Jonnu Smith was targeted 6 times for 5 receptions, and Pitts was targeted 5 times for 4 receptions. And then if you switch it, nice. And then if you switch it over to Bijan and Tyler, 11 and 12. So he literally is as close to 50-50 splits as you can. But imagine the days where we had like Julio up top and going, Jones, here's your 5 receptions.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, you've got
splitting them. You just don't do that. You key players, you're going to overuse them, and opposition know you're going to overuse them, but they should be good enough for that not to matter. Statistically, it shouldn't matter as much. If they hit 8 out of 10, surely that's a better rate than splitting it 50-50 and only hitting like 2 or 3 each. So
see, the thing is that I don't understand, right? Is if you're going to run on a first down, then you want your bull rush tank of a running back to try and get you 3, 4, 5 yards, right? You don't use the smaller guy on first down. You use him on a third down at least, so that so at least he's got the talent to be able to get you a fit. But it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. It's like, oh well, you're in on these 5 plays, and then you're in on the next 5 plays, and it's like, well, it's predictable. Like, this isn't Brit ball. Because guess what? That's what happens over here. And it's an amateur sport. So I just the scheme, the play calling, it's going to be a really Nick raises a fair point, right? I don't know how you can say all this and say you're not Smith out. Well, because at this point, I didn't, and by the way, I'm certainly not Smith in. But I want the guy. I just want the guy to do well, like just like I wanted Dan Quinn to do well, like, and just call me daft, but I can't sit here and go, we'll sack him now, because then you need someone else to come in and then input their scheme, which is mid-season just feels wild to me.
Let's point that towards the comments then. We've got some live viewers. Anybody watching? If you are Dan Quinn, for God's sake. We're very, very Dan Quinn out, just to confirm. If you're Arthur Smith out, who is your hypothetical replacement mid-season now, and who do you think is capable of bringing in a scheme and implementing it mid-season? I know we have a bye week coming up, so there is the argument for it, but I think
if you want to take a risk for me, go offer Eric Bieniemy a contract, because all he wants is a head coaching job.
Yeah,
he's assistant head coach there, isn't he, at the moment?
Yes,
I mean, Lions OC. I mean, okay, but I think you're gonna hang your hat on that for a couple of years after a couple of good seasons.
I'm interested to know obviously what people think we're getting. Obviously he's underutilizing key weapons, as we know.
Yeah,
but I would also argue that we're getting good production out of lesser players. Like John O. Smith has been pretty consistent throughout the last few weeks. Hodge has been pretty good. And they're lesser players. So we're getting good production out of lesser players. So
I guess certainly agreeing with Lane's point there, like, we'll go change your red zone strategy, because like if we turn them field goals into touchdowns, we wouldn't be sitting here depressed in group therapy, right? Because those 4 trips down the field, which ended up in field goals, right? If we punch them in, then we're having a different conversation. So our red zone efficiency is what's holding us back.
Yeah. What would people think if the numbers of the players were different? If, let's say, Cal Pitts had 100 yards and Johnny Smith had 40, and Drake London was getting 100, 80, 90 yards, and Hodge was getting 20. Like, would that make people see it differently, because the star players would be getting the big numbers and the lesser players are getting the smaller numbers, which is the way around people expect it to be? Or is it more of an issue that the players were expecting to get the big numbers and not doing, rather than we're not getting the big numbers in the first place? Because we got 100 yards, obviously it was a big play. But
I don't think anybody would be bothered if we were punching the ball in more.
Well, no, I mean, like, we got the plays are sort of like there. So if we were just to put those numbers up and then get that ball in, like, I don't know, if we're underutilizing Pitts, we're also overutilizing Smith, because we're getting production out of tight end. It's just a different one than people were expecting.
Yeah.
So would people be as annoyed if it was the other way around? Is it just because we've spent such a high value on a player that we're underutilizing?
I think that's probably the main reason, isn't it? Because we are drafting in top 10. These are the players that should be changing the fortune of the franchise.
Or is Johnny Smith better than Cal Pitts?
See, you laugh, but this is a very valid point. People equate draft status to guaranteed potential and form. And I mean, I'm not disputing. I'm not going to actually have the argument if he is better or not. But
No.
But there's a reason he's not getting as many snaps, and whether that is Arthur's play calling, that is one argument, or he might just not be performing as good. Like we don't see them week in, week out.
I just don't watch
see the stats. We don't see the routes being.
When we watch games, we don't
anything.
watch Kyle Pitts I don't watch Kyle Pitts for 60 minutes. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
We just don't watch it in that way. So I couldn't say whether he's open and should be targeted or whether he's not getting open because he's we've not lost the step. Most fans are not going to watch it from that perspective, so like we wouldn't really see it. But something's not right there, whichever it is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Do we just take more risks with the ball? Do we throw the ball up more to these bigger players and let them make the plays? But I don't know. I feel like Hodge is like, finding them gaps a little bit like Zacchaeus used to do. He's finding them little holes, isn't he, making big plays. But he's not a guy that's really expected to put out the bag for us. He's expected to be there's a bit of a cover guy or a little bit of a utility guy when we need him. But I think it said, I heard it on the commentary really, that he said that basically Heineke said from his perspective, Hodge was the guy he found the connection with. And he was the guy that this was before the actual game. He was the guy that in practice they felt like he had the connection with, and it proved that he likes to target Hodge a lot. So does that say bad on the scheme or more that just Hodge is making the effort and the runs that everybody should be doing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Heineke and all quarterbacks like a guy who's putting in that extra effort to make, to get those extra yards and get that separation and constantly running hard routes.
Yeah.
If that's happening from Hodge and like he's looking at Pitts and Pitts is 80% in it and doesn't look like he's open and keen, I'd be throwing to Hodge as well. So
it's a good point. It's a good point.
Fair argument. Just jump into the comments. Oh, no, we're not. Did anybody else see this? We did share it on Twitter. Patterson, let's not forget, I really do this shit. Whoever needs to see this, was his comment to a little montage of his runs. So I think that's quite a bold showing from him to say, use me, I'm back, I'm fit. And I know, again, it's not down to him to be making those comments, but he's not wrong.
But I think it's worrying that he is.
I think it's extremely worrying that he is, considering for the last handful of years, no matter what our position as a team has been, he's been very, very locked in on us. And that seems very much like we maybe could have got rid of him and didn't. And he's a bit livid that like he's been kept anyway for the sake of it, that kind of route. As in, if you're not being utilized, there was rumors about him going elsewhere. And
yeah, I guess there's a couple of things here, and I think just to stop us going around in circles. Mm-hmm. So I think certainly from what we're all feeling, there needs to be a change, right? So that's up to him. And if he don't make a change and we keep losing, then listen, I could we have a bad game this weekend. Rowdy, a Falcon Mind guys said it earlier on, like kind of 2 feet in but 9 toes out. Like, I could kind of very, very much probably be there myself if he doesn't change anything. And I think Nick probably kind of summed it up as, doesn't that tell you there's a problem in the locker room? I mean, certainly an argument.
Right.
I do wonder, to your point, Danny, whether there might be some of this possibly growing discontent within the locker room. So maybe there's almost like not the effort being put in because they're kind of sick of the way Smith's doing things. I think there's certainly a case for that. I do think so. I'll bring this conversation to a head so we can move on, so that we're not here all night just because we'll probably descend into tears soon. But I guess I'll pose it with this question. If the worst should happen and we carry on in this vein of form, and Smith goes, then is it damage limitation? Are we moving on to next season? Like,
that's
is
my
that where we're at?
That's my concern. If you're to bring a new head coach in now, how can Arthur Blank fairly say your expectation is to get us to the playoffs? Because that's not. I don't think that's a feasible request of a coach coming in.
One thing that we know is Arthur Blank hired Smith and Fontenot. So Smith technically isn't Fontenot's guy.
Yeah, we've had this. Yeah.
So I think if we're going down that road of, look, maybe it's time to move on from Coach Smith, then we're going to have to trust in Terry to make a decision. Because I don't think Blank will make that decision. I think we've seen it with Dan Quinn. He'll probably at least give him another year. So Terry's going to have to step in, and I think what we're going to see is, Terry, have you got the cojones to make the call?
I trust Terry with my whole heart, to be completely fair. So,
okay,
I would. I mean, if you look in terms of what he's been able to do in free agency, we've already had the draft talk of best available and all that jazz, so we won't dip into that. But I think with the limited resources available, with the minus funds we've had available and stuff, I'd say like 7 out of 10 calls have been hits, if we're completely honest. And hit, I don't mean world beater. I mean, they've done what they were brought in for. So whatever that person's like 1 year contract expectation was, I think most people have made the cut of the circumstances we've been under.
Okay. So if anything, we've got to hope Terry holds as much power with Arthur as in Arthur B.
Yeah.
Then we hope he does, right? Because if it's on Blank, then could be a rough couple of minutes.
Okay, let's hop along. I've got a few more talking points, and then we'll do a little bit of Cardinals. One that I do want to touch on a little bit, and I think it's going to be overshadowed by everything that we've just covered anyway. But I have to ask, Heineke or Ridder? Obviously, we know that Heineke is starting against the Cardinals, and Smith has said that it will be reassessed. I think that is bollocks. Heineke hasn't done enough for me to justify starting. I'm not saying he's been bad, but he's not been substantially better than Ridder, and therefore this falls back to the discussions that we had much earlier in the season. Do you play Heineke, know what you're going to get out of it because you know what his ceiling is already, or do you play Ridder and hope that he finds form and improves because we don't know what his ceiling is yet? So if Heineke had come in and got no interceptions, was spraying the ball around for fun, blah, 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 stick with him. That's fine. I wouldn't debate that. But he's really not been that much better. Not to slate him. He's been fine.
There's a couple of points you could take from this. And it's like the fans have gave up on the season already. Like, that's it. The season's basically over. That's what, if you're reading Twitter, this season's completely fucking done. Whether we get to the playoffs or not, everyone's like, oh, we'll just get battered anyway. We'll just lose. And that's another talking point that I want to get onto after, just like with tanking and all that bullshit. So fans are a bit like, I think Ridder needed to be dropped at that point. I think that was fair. And Heineke's played a game and a half. And I feel like it depends what kind of mindset you have for the rest of the season. If you're like, you already sort of Smith out, which all of us are not. We're not Smith in, but it's on the border basically.
Yeah.
Another week, another 2 weeks, you could be like, fair enough, it's time. I don't know. I think it's quite a tough one. It doesn't. Do you just put like Ridder back in because you're like the season's? If you're a fan and you're like the season's done, you would just put like, well, put it back in and see what he can do because whatever. But I would.
I felt like what I expected to see from Heineke was not what it was, which was my concern. I didn't expect him to throw loads of yards and loads of touchdowns and be explosive, because he just isn't that quarterback.
Yeah.
Like he's not that good, and I don't think he wouldn't expect that himself. He just isn't that guy who's going to like dominate a game. But what I expected is safety. I expected an efficient, safe performance.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't explosive. He got a solid amount of yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, like whatever, that sort of safe football where we put it in the hands of our receivers, they made plays. But because that's the type of quarterback he's sort of known to be, that wasn't what it was. Like in that game, he was slinging a thing, and it was wild, and it could have gone. He could have had 3 or 4 interceptions.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that could have happened.
Which leads me on to the point. Is and this is why I'm still so frustrated. And I'll be honest with you, that's why I've stayed off Twitter, because again, everyone's already buried him.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone, no, that's who Desmond Ridder is. Well, guess what? We were shown this week it's not who Desmond Ridder is.
Mm-hmm.
This is the scheme that they're both in. They're taking these wild throws.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, it's showing the weakness in the scheme rather than the actual player. I think Carl's absolutely right. It was probably the good, or it was probably a fair experiment to drop him, but to get him out of the situation where if it carried on being bad, that the kid wouldn't keep getting dicked on.
Yeah.
And if I'm that kid now, I would go, do you know what it is? I'll go and get an office job. Because all I'm doing is I'm turning up week in, week out. I'm throwing the ball where my coach is telling me to throw the ball. And I've got thousands of people on social media calling me awful, saying that I'm not it, blah, 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 blah. And it's and some of the stuff I've seen about Ridder was just quite frankly embarrassing. So for me, this week proved that it genuinely is not about the quarterback. And one thing that I will say is that Desmond Ridder, if he'd been put in the position, if he was in that game, there are drives where he would have extended the play with his feet that Heineke just can't do. So if you're going to say, well, they're still going to throw the same wild passes that are interception worthy, well, then you might as well put the kid in that could at least extend plays with his feet.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, actually, all you're doing is you're making the offense worse.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So,
I think this week, I think I'm glad Heineke's starting this week because it's the Cardinals and we'll get onto that shit. And if we lose that, then fuck me, big problems. I'm glad he's starting this week, but I don't trust Arthur Smith with we're going to think about it. Is it our bye week?
Straight after the Cardinals and then straight into the Saints.
I don't think this week might be a good week, so I think we will go on to win this, but I don't think that would be because of the quarterback either. I feel like if we'll see the scheme, we'll see Arthur's scheme, we'll see Heineke using or being in this scheme, and I don't think he'll turn out that well. We'll win the game, and then after that, I would then be putting Ridder back in anyway, because I want to see, he's only had a week and a half in the scheme, so I'd want to see it another week, and then I would then put Ridder back in personally. Because like what Mark said, has a really good point, is I've slaughtered Ridder, I've slaughtered Heineke, but I think it gives you another week to prove that it's not just the quarterbacks, it is the scheme that is making them look.
You just got to work Heineke's game.
That's why I would say one more week, Heineke do it. It's against the Cardinals. Fucking hell. Go from there and then bring Ridder back in.
And look, you know, the dimension that Ridder gives you with his feet, it's got him touchdowns. Like he's already got a couple on the season.
And he should have had three.
And probably should have one more, but let's not talk about the fumble it. This takes us nicely to the Cardinals game, right? So let's move on to that. Kyler's back, right? So there's two things there. So first of all, probably not necessarily match fit, but let's not look too much into that because we just lost to Josh Dobbs, who had been in the building for 4 days, right? So let's not look too much into that. Cardinals defense is awful, so and they can't stay in games, right? So there's a weakness to exploit there. My concern is we go into the Cardinals game, we win, and then that is ammunition for him to say, well, we keep Heineke in.
That's a concern. I agree.
I don't think that the Cardinals have a great amount of weaponry that we should be worried about. However, we're saying that there's been a couple of games that at least for parts of the game, Cardinals have at least looked a half decent unit on offense. They are in sync. They can't hold on to games. They can't hold on to a lead. We know that. Okay, great. Well, guess what? Neither can we. So let's not, let's not take on the Cardinals too much, right? But I think that's my concern with this game coming up. Is it's a perfect game for us to go and make things right, and almost kind of playing against what we may consider to be weaker opponent, right? So if that's what we're considering, right, it's winnable. We can do something. We can get the season back on track, or we can at least look like we are. Yeah. But if Heineke's starting that game, are we just sleepwalking into a position where it strengthens Arthur Smith's bad decision?
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think it depends on how Heineke plays. If Heineke, I know it's a bad team, but if Heineke plays well, he plays well. I feel like he deserves another week by playing well. Like he can only beat who's in front of him, sort of thing. Like if he goes and has a good efficient performance, like you can't change it back the week after that. Like obviously if he plays badly,
but that's my point, right? Is that if you can't, like, if he plays well, you can't say, all right, well, we're going back to Des now.
No, I don't think we should though. If he plays well, I feel we've got to play the guys playing well. He might go and stink the week after, but like you can't you can't drop him off.
That game after in a game that's not it.
Yeah, but Ridder could come in and play. Ridder could come in and play well against the Cardinals and stink against the Saints as well. So we just don't know. Like we won't know it. Like if the Cardinals are as bad on defense as they have been, who would we know? We might not find if we go and win. We might not find out either about the. Like we'll probably if the Cardinals think we're not going to find out anything about either of them, are we? Because they've got an easy matchup. But I don't like. I would give Heineke the kind of plays that Heineke should get, and the simple, efficient, get the ball out fast plays. Because I feel like if he can perfect that, well, not perfect it, but if he can get that going against the Cardinals, I think that's probably how we beat the Saints as well. Is that I feel like Ridder is less safe than Heineke, but more explosive. So you kind of got to go with one or the other.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the best one is for us, really.
Yeah, and Heineke isn't that safe either as compared to what
he wasn't. He normally
he's
third. Like, he's had bad games obviously in the past because he's a guy that's not really. He's a backup, as he's always been a backup. But has had games where he's ran an offense with efficiency, and that's what I was hoping we'd get from him was the efficiency, and we just go from there. But there's always the option of switching the quarterback mid-game. If one's playing bad against the Saints, we can switch to explosiveness or switch to safety, whatever we start with. So I don't really like doing that, but I think it could easily come to that, couldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Just for side note, obviously we all know the Cardinals are sitting at 1-8, which is absolutely stunning. They threw
It's
for.
a perfect record to come and to come into a game against us,
isn't it? Obviously, quarterback change at weekend, but they threw for 58 yards, which is beautiful. But before that,
he's got a great name.
That's only interim. They've already said Kyler's back.
Well, exactly, and I'd like to preface it a little bit by saying Dobbs was the quarterback anyway, so they've just lost.
Well, that makes us feel better.
They were 7-1. They were 7-1, 1-7 with Dobbs at quarterback, and we've just lost to him anyway. So it's not really a good representation.
They're just a load of shite from back to front, really, aren't they? The Cardinals, the Cardinals were a load of shite before the season, and they've just lived up to what they've expected.
Yeah.
So I'm not really surprised. But obviously Kyler brings a completely different skill set than anything we would have faced with Dobbs or Tune. I can't imagine he's physically there yet. But they have held him back a little bit longer than maybe they actually thought they were going to.
Yeah.
So he might be, but even with Kyler, he's good. He's obviously a very good quarterback, but surely he I don't want to say it, but surely he doesn't have enough to elevate that offense and negate the CAC defense that they've got and beat us. But God, you never know.
It sounds like jinx things, but it's all right. Don't worry about it. We are going into the game very minute favourite. We were much higher favourites before it was announced that Murray's coming back into the fold. So
depends how many shits he actually gives. He should no matter what.
It's because he's getting ready to pack his bags for Atlanta next season.
I mean, if he just
excite me.
The fact that Dobbs was, a guy who's not known for his running game, was running a little bit all over us. If Kyler already scores, you know what? I'm just gonna be a running back for 60 minutes. We're gonna have a fun time.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome.
Trying to catch that little guy.
100%.
9 o'clock kickoff, isn't it, over it as well? 9:05.
Oh, is it a late one?
Yeah.
It's late one of the season now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Pretty sure it's our only one.
Yeah.
Arizona tends to be late kickoffs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just, go on.
None, because we don't know how to use good players.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Not hugely. I think the wide receivers we played did what London would have done. And again, I don't mean to labour the point, but kind of we have mentioned it on the pod before. One thing that really stands out to me once again, and totally weakness of the scheme, but also limitations of the personnel that we have as well. I massively kind of begged for a speedster wide receiver in free agency. Our wide receiver core, yards after catch, there aren't any.
You got Van Jefferson, Mark.
Well, I mean, I was listen, I always look at these things with rose-tinted glasses on, but right now those rose-tinted glasses are in pieces, right? So
he does look like he absolutely stinks, but we'll see.
I'm praying for the lad, but social media was a dark place for him the other day. It was rough. It was not good, but rightly so. Some of it just does not look the part at the moment. But again, I will give everybody time.
See, this is my point about scheme, though, right? So if you watch the Chiefs, right now, don't get me wrong, right? I know it's a different team, like much better coach team, right? Somehow, and you can put money on it most of the time, right? Somehow, Travis Kelce will always be 15 to 20 yards up the field, in the middle of the field, unmarked.
Yeah.
Right? And still gets yards after catch. Mm-hmm. So, although I mentioned about, the kind of athletic builds of our players, actually it really, really doesn't matter. It's just more and more highlighting for me of this is not we're not stretching them, and that's what we've got to start doing. And like Kyle Pitts, for example, Kyle Pitts, for example, one of the things he was amazing at in college, and Liam, you would have watched it, he got separation from everybody. Everybody. Somehow. Sometimes, even when he was double covered, he'd get separation. And it's almost like separation isn't in the playbook, which like every catcher always has a wide receiver catch. It's always under duress or being contested or whatever. It's like you're not really putting people in gaps. You're putting people in traffic.
Yeah.
I think I was just speaking about like speedsters. Demir Bird played, didn't he, this game? Because he's back on the scene. So I think he played. I can remember being on the field once. I don't know if he made it more than once.
2 targets, no receptions.
2 targets. So he is a speedster. I mean, he's obviously been here before. So I don't know whether we're going to try. I can't remember when he signed. It was late last month, wasn't it? When he came back onto the practice squad. I can't remember when we elevated him, but I don't know if this was his first game. But then
dark times, if that's what we're relying on, though. Right?
I mean, I'm not really putting on my hopes on doing it, but he had some good games for us in his first stint. Now and again, so maybe they brought him back because I know he's not the player that we really want in that position, but I feel like we brought him in because of an obvious lack of speed and ball in hand ability, which is kind of what he does. Not of anything.
Well, I mean, I think is it, to again try and stop us from going around in circles, right? We need to change something up. We need to do something different.
Yeah.
I'm almost kind of like, I'm glad we're playing the Cardinals because I think it's a really winnable game. But if the vein of form carries on and if there is problems in that locker room, then if we don't beat the Cardinals, I think that is a big red flag and one that even the most positive of us in me would just go, nah.
Yeah.
Time to go.
Yeah.
I think that's one positive with it kicking off at 9. I've as soon as it hits 12 and win or loss, I've got to go sleep next. I've got to go sleep straight away. I've got to be up at 5. So probably won't see Twitter. If we did lose, like Twitter blew up this week, I feel like next week would be a fucking war zone.
Well, I mean, I think it'd be really great that we've had obviously Nick and out here Falcon man boys in the chat. It's been great, but not many people in tonight, not many people chatting because it's bleak, right?
When the Wolves hit, that's what we're at, isn't it?
And I think that's the real risk that we've got going now is that we came into the season on a vibe, right? On a real kind of margin of positivity, and already the Benz is going to start emptying out because nobody's going to watch it. Nobody's going to want to watch it, right? And that's I think that continues to be the most heartbreaking thing, right? Is it's sapping it out of all of us. So, Coach, please, not that I imagine that you're listening, but
don't worry.
Bro, please, for the love of God and for the love of your job, sort this out.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of little honourable mention things, and then I've got 2 little bits of any other business. If everybody's still happy to continue,
yeah, go for it.
So one of my honourable mentions, and it's one against us, not for us, was a touchdown scorer for the Vikings at weekend was Brandon Powell. That was ours, if you'll remember. And I just thought, that's really typical as well. Everybody that seems to play against us absolutely dicks us at the moment. So it doesn't matter who they are, how bad they were for us. Everybody shows up. That's a nice little one.
That's when real talent.
It's a nice little one. It's a nice little one for who?
Not for us.
Brandon Powell. Because
I've got a real nice little one. Just an actual honourable mention now.
I was Danny, I'm dreading about whatever's about to come out your mouth.
No, this is a real one. So a first career sack for Nate Landman. Looking like a pretty solid player. Pretty solid player. How we feeling about him?
One of the real good news stories, for me in this team undrafted free agent, came in the XFL, I think, or CFL, one of the two, and has just totally adapted. Looks a great player. And between him, Anderson when he comes back, and Caden Ellis, I think we've got a really lovely little trio of linebackers there that again, like a kind of a bit of a shining light in the dark room, right? But 100%, definitely an honourable mention worth talking about.
Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah. I did see a funny post saying if you put Landman's mind in Anderson's body, then we'd have a player and a half, which is a nice little one. But we'll take what we can get for now.
Yeah, he's been good.
But just on that, and not necessarily for discussion, but just more of a shout out really is Caden Ellis as well. Like I know I just said it, but again, another really shrewd pickup that everyone said we overpaid and we so didn't. And linebacker, good solid linebackers are really kind of hard to find. And I think Nate Landman's kind of the story, right? Because undrafted, etc. But let's not take anything away from Caden Ellis because he's balling.
Yeah,
he was interesting in terms of like we thought he's like he was in there for he's got some sacks in his last season, didn't he? At the Saints, like he was kind of in that pass rush. Could he be a pass rusher? And that's what maybe he was brought in to do. And he's kind of like we've not really asked him to do a lot of it.
No,
and asked him to do a completely different game, and he's just adapted away from it and gone to more of a wide tackling linebacker, which is just a great skill for him to go from one to the other, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't want to go over all ground, but I will say this is I know we're not really getting a tune out of the pass rush right now, but and we started to see it introduced a bit more. We started seeing Ebiketie come back in and get a few more reps and really starting to add some pressure on the pass rush. And again, once again this week, this is why I kind of keep my opinions loud and proud on this one. Coach Nielsen, I'm not quite sure why this kid isn't getting snapped when he's playing. He's doing well. So what's the crack here? So although linebackers, as a group, I think we've got some really strong foundations there. Pass rush needs to get better, and for the love of God, let's start seeing Ebiketie a little bit more, please.
Yeah, he's already beat his sack numbers for last year, MK. So
stunning.
So that's on minimal plays. So he's progressing, which is kind of what you want to see. I don't know if it's a
the most effective defensive end we've got right now is Calais Campbell, right? And with all due respect.
Yeah, and on your matter, I think as well has done for me. He's done.
Oh yeah. But I'm talking about from that sort of defensive end position, right? And for me, Calais probably isn't going to be here next year, right? So, by all means, get the vet in to do the job, but you've got to start blooding these players. Yeah, like it's madness to me. Really is. So didn't want to end the honorable mention on a negative note, but I think it was just something that we hadn't mentioned earlier on that I really want to get off my chest.
Yeah, no, 100%. My other bit is from around the NFL, so nothing to do with us. I don't know if any of you seen the videos of Aaron Rodgers pinging a ball about on the field the other day, pottering about. And then that clip that's circulating of him saying that he's going to be back in a few weeks, which to me, if there's any truth in it, and that just means he's touching grass again and he's back on the field. When did he injure himself? Like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
it was basically the start of the season, and we're only 8 and 9 in. So what are they injecting him with?
I don't know. I mean, I guess the problem with Aaron Rodgers is that he talks so much
waffle,
codswallop all the time. He's probably been to see a shaman or something and taken loads of ayahuasca, and they've done a voodoo spell on his leg or what. Listen, I don't know, and I felt really sorry for the Jets because they built that whole offense around him.
Yeah.
I don't really like the dude, but again, one of my best mates is a Jets fan, and they are, they were almost in a position where not necessarily win now, but they were building something, right? And I find it wild that he might possibly get back on the field in a few weeks. I think that's insane to me. However,
Can't do anything funny.
However,
in the
at this
state
point,
he is in now, he would do better than what Wilson's doing.
Exactly. Yes. Took the words out of my mouth. You've seen Zach Wilson that day, and my word, I don't know what it is about that franchise and quarterbacks, but he just looked like sort of the Sam Darnold of old. Like just so. And I mean, not that I'm trying to big myself up here, but I said this during the draft when he went second, is that was just one of the craziest second overall picks I think I've ever seen since I've started watching this sport. Came out of BYU, wasn't really proven against any good teams, and I'm absolutely just befuddled at how that experiment hasn't worked out. And if Rodgers gets back, cool. But I guess probably one thing I would say on it is if Achilles goes again, bro, that's all she wrote. Like I look forward to your CBD business that you will undoubtedly start afterwards, and because I think it's crazy at his age to be trying to get back that quick, but time will tell.
I thought it was game over for him as soon as I heard about that injury. I said, he's done now. Like, just write it off. So yeah, I had another little one, but it's just bittersweet after we've been ripping our quarterbacks. It was just about how good CJ Stroud's been on 20 yard throws this season. He's got a 93.7 passing grade, if you like those kind of things. 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 143 passer rating, which puts him first over 20 yards. I'm not asked about the ratings as such. I'm not a ratings man, but fair play.
I was really vocal. He was the best QB in that draft for me. And I still, to this day, have a little chuckle to myself when I'm trying to find some positivity in this swamp of chaos that we appear to be in. Panthers absolutely just wasted their draft capital. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know.
No, Bryce Young, welcome good. I'll put my house on it.
I know Bryce hasn't necessarily got a hugely great supporting cast around him, but I would argue at this point in time, I don't think Stroud's got that much of a better surrounding cast. I just think that, again, his coaching and D'Amico Ryans has gone into the Texans and done a hell of a job. So all fair play to him. Great. It's really good to see what rookie quarterbacks can do when they've got good coaches about them.
Yeah, so it's a lot of it. Obviously, he's always got the ability, which was a given anyway. But it's the atmosphere, isn't it? Like the Texans kind of had this lull of they weren't going to be that good, but new coach brought in this upbeat atmosphere, sort of gunslinging, have a go at teams. And he's delivering that atmosphere on the field, and so are the receivers, and so is the O-line, and they're all sort of doing it together. And the Panthers are in this opposite, where everybody's in a wall on every side of the ball, and it just goes across the entire franchise, doesn't it? Like when everybody starts playing badly, and the coaching looks terrible, and it's just awful. Which is great for us because it's a team off our point to have to compete against. But we know there's players on that Panthers team that can be good, that they've got some good individuals that are just not playing well because everybody stinks. So and the Texans, we've got players who look at you and go, "You're not very good." They were just playing out the minds, so you can stop that. And I like that. I like what they're doing. I like their approach. Over in Houston, I think they're just going, we're just going to play our game and see what happens, and they're doing that every single week.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing in it, right? Is they're doing the thing, right? And even when they lose, right, they're still having a go. Do you know what I mean? They're still punching the ball in. They're still and they haven't got much of a run game either, by the way. Like, and you know, as a Gator, it's almost sad to see, because I was really high on Damian Pierce and he had a great rookie year last year. So of course I picked him in nearly all of my fantasy leagues, thinking I was being really, really clever. And they haven't got that run game going. So it's all on Stroud, right? So and Tank Dell, and you know, all of these sorts of guys. And it's I think it's kind of almost like again, it's almost like a dagger to the heart, right? Because you know, D'Amico Ryan's done that in one season, not even one season. He's done it in 8 games, right? And here we are, 3 years down the line, still sitting here having the same old conversations. It's just
that's
borderline.
They're having fun, like the Texans fans. You see, even on the games, like obviously they're not winning every game or anything. They're but they're enjoying what they're watching. Like, they're playing their game, and if teams beat them, they beat them.
Yeah. Or
they're like putting up points against teams and having great fun in a season where they didn't expect much.
Yeah.
Like, so that's, you know, that when they have got more good players around it, you can imagine what they actually could potentially do.
Oof.
So, So yes.
But Danny, just to bring this group therapy session to somewhat of a close, are we going to do an over and under this week?
We can do. I didn't have one lined up because we've lost our momentum a little bit. So we missed the first week and then we missed last week. So I'm happy to
let me hit you with one.
Drop it.
Falcons over and under 30 points.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Under.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Under for me all day.
I'm gonna go over.
Okay, 1 second.
Oh, fucking hell.
30.5 or
29.5.
Yeah, there we go. 29.5 or 30.
Fuck it, I'll go over.
Cal's over. Liam, what did you say? Sorry.
I said over as well. What's this all about?
I mean, 10 field goals, I'll do. That should be
Yeah, I'll admit a lot of mine's relying on the Cardinals being so bad over the Falcons being good, but still.
Yeah. Mark, what are you going?
If it's gonna happen, it has to be this game.
Under.
Perfect.
Because I feel like whenever I'm cocky and like overconfident or like blindly overconfident, that's when it don't happen. So I'm gonna go under to hope to jinx it into life.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't say we was gonna win. I just said over.
No, I mean, I'm neither there. I just mean like, I just want to see us score 30 points. So if I go under, hopefully the universe will continue to do something from a great height. But let's go. Me and Danny go under. You two go over.
Let's take
Which is wild because you two are the most negative out of the two of us.
I know what's going on. Have you broken us, Mark? Are we? Is this it for us now?
Because I feel like if you're going to score over 30 points against someone this year,
it
has to be. But I can't wait until it's like.
Well, I mean, just remember, the Panthers are 1-8-0.
Fucking hell.
The Falcons written all over it, hasn't it? It really has.
Heineke's going to get over 148 rating this week.
There we go. Bosh.
Woo!
Just quick reboot of the comments just to make sure we're all good. Keith, if you watch the first 46 minutes of the show, unfortunately, it's all we spoke about, so we will not put ourselves through it again. Same goes to this one. Literally, I think it was 46 minutes before we came off the Smith.
It's a really good question, and I think that how hot is it? It's getting uncomfortably hot.
Yes.
So,
it's like when you put your toe in the bath and you have to.
I imagine it's what like a toilet seat feels like in a portaloo in a volcano.
Well, you've heard it here first.
Arthur Blank still won't fire him though. Could be on fire that seat.
Well, listen. I think if we lose against the Cardinals, and lose against the Saints, and I think where I genuinely would start to question Terry.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if that's, I don't know if it could be Terry can't fire him and it has to go through Blank, but I would severely question Terry if we lose against Cardinals, we lose against Saints, how that position still remains tenable.
Yeah.
I
agree.
Long-winded answer to that.
What a depressing note to end the show on. But unless anybody has got any extra comments, I am happy to call it there because it is the most relevant point that we have at the moment in time.
I think one thing that I will end it on, right, is look, we're all in pain, right? We're all sick of mediocrity. We're all sick of not having fun watching the Falcons, right? Like we're all in the same boat. So, and Danny, I'm sure you're going to clip this. So can I just put this
smiling faces ready to go.
Put this out there into the Falcons universe, guys. Let's just be nice to each other. Like, we don't have to argue about everything. We don't have to argue about everything. Like, it's okay, right? We're all in pain.
That is a very bold request, but
it's also not going to happen.
Well, what was that, Liam?
It's also not going to happen. I'll give it 10 minutes before it's absolutely riling on Twitter.
This is going to be the promo.
I just want us to all just have some love and positivity about something. So can we not just find that in each other for the time being, rather than arguing about our respect?
Love and peace always.
There's always a Saints fan you can abuse and argue with, though.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, there is, but my Twitter's on its last ban, so I've got to be very careful about what I say and who I say it to.
Yeah. Oh God, not that good.
And just as we sign off,
sorry.
Every single game is winnable. Before
it's always the ones walking backwards as well.
Exactly. I think every game is winnable. I don't think we'll win them, but I do think every game is winnable. We've been doing that for about 4 weeks now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Out of your Falcon mind, it's been a pleasure for. And where's Nick? There he is. And Nick Totty, thank you for keeping this show rolling with us. Boom. So it is win or bust then. It is quite literally win or bust. Everyone, thank you for joining us live, especially out of your Falcon-minded Nick. You've been keeping the comments popping. Like, subscribe. Mark, where can they hear us? Where can they listen to us? Where can they find us?
Our Music, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast.
It just had to be done. Thank you again, everyone. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and we will be back next week, hopefully sitting at 5-5. But until then, we will see you later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.